What kind of face does this person have? It is a very interesting face. The years from 2000 to 2010 are responsible for everything. What kind of years were they? Does anybody truly know him apart from himself? Who created Russian laws during the 1990s? All Russian laws, including tax laws, were written on the back of foreign grants. Russian natural resources were only brought under control in 2004. Before that, the resources were not even under Russian jurisdiction. The law was abolished only in 2004. If we hadn't done that, we would have never depended on the oil prices. All Russian laws were written on the back of foreign grants. I didn't know that before the head of the Duma committee made the statement. The key laws. In our country, we had... It was the Americans who had written our laws for us, including oil. We just accepted oil under the standard law for developing states, the colonial law, well, for the countries of the Third World. It is important here to understand the following. I said that in 2003 we made the decision to fight. The initial decisions had been overridden, and the oil revenues started flowing into Russia from the 1st of January 2004. That's what's important. Before then, we would receive less than 20 cents from every petrodollar, and no one would say a word about it. In the 1990s, Russia saw a period of exchange on the part of the then leaders. It was the exchange of the political support of the elites. Not only America alone. To a great extent, he also needed regional support. The agreement with regions was achieved on the basis of special tax regimes. This is about Tatarstan, Bashkiria and Yakutia. I'm not talking about Chechnya. Ingushetia was managing fine without the agreement. Tatarstan and Bashkiria are also all about the oil. What was the price that we had to pay for the product-sharing agreement? One man, there was one man. Vladimir Putin managed to change the situation profoundly. What is the product-sharing agreement? Why was Russia losing its own oil and its oil income? It seems that some of the major constituents of our budget is oil, gas and arms sales. This is an unexpected conversation that we are having today. It is literally a conversation about the fact that we do not know that man at all well. We don't know what he does, and that man's name is Vladimir Putin. The losses amounted to 2/3 of the overall budget. Russia started fighting for it in the year 2000. Our country? Yes, and we achieved victory officially in 2004. Does that mean that the struggle began only after Putin came to power? Yes, of course. Before that, all oil and natural resources, according to the product-sharing agreement, were not under Russian jurisdiction. They did not belong to Russia, and there was a special law regulating that. The budget losses made up 2/3 of the budget itself. All pensions were 3 times as low as they are now. The entirety of state spending was 3 times as low as it is now. The oil revenues were being stored abroad. That money did not manifest itself in the Russian economy. It became the property and the spoils of foreign states. That money was not Russian. So you're saying that Russia had not been getting a single cent from its own oil business for more than 10 years? Right. It was getting nearly nothing from its oil because the product-sharing agreement was in effect. When you said that a year ago, everybody was shocked. For some reason, they didn't know that the oil, which Russia is so proud of, hadn't been supporting Russia before Putin. I have a very important question for you. How is our budget developed? Yes, of course. And who was stealing all that money during those years? Someone must have been stealing it, it seems, and what did Putin do about it? And if, and this is my question, it is a fundamental aspect, then why us? Why Russia? To this day we know nothing about this business of Vladimir Putin, and we still know nothing about that role of his. People didn't understand that politics affected their lives as much as their families did. It is based on the living standard and on the security level of the country. If all the oil and the revenues from it were being kept abroad, then we're talking about tens of billions of dollars, perhaps hundreds of billions. And there was only one man who took those risks, and it was Putin. He was taking risks internationally in the wake of this, and so many people were unhappy about it, unhappy about those risks which have already taken place. This is what we are going to talk about. Firstly, no one has abolished the word propaganda, but the focus of propaganda is aimed against us. They do not understand that the Russian state was established by American advisors. You have already said that the Russian laws have been written on the back of American grants, and that they were economic laws. The state structure of Russia was created by foreign advisors. Tens of thousands of people were working in our ministries and departments, establishing Russian statesmanship there. They were working in all sorts of ministries. I saw it with my own eyes. I even brought it to President Putin's attention. Soroses sponsored support and made exercise books for our children, ruled notebooks, that sort of thing. Was there a scandal with textbooks, which Soros had published and approved? Yes. It was ideological manipulation and sabotage, when you could see they had 3 lines about the Battle of Stalingrad and 4 pages about the link-up on the Elbe. This is a different kind of story altogether. It was just a notebook for school children, but there was no text of the national anthem on the back cover of those notebooks. There was no multiplication table there either. Why would American presidents be printed on Russian notebooks for Russian children? It wasn't just one notebook, there were hundreds and thousands of them. Was Putin surprised? Yes, he was. He really was. Because it was like, here, this is how politics goes. How was it that Russian oil had found itself completely abroad? What is the product sharing agreement? Let's not hastily explain it using the example of Sakhalin. Sakhalin is the last remaining agreement. 260 agreements have been abolished. They were approved according to the president's orders on the basis of the law, which had been passed before Putin came to power during the 1990s. So it includes all Russia's oil, all gas, all metals, everything. 262 deposits were made on this purely colonial scheme, and all the money from the Russian raw materials was supposed to be wired abroad. In other words, we have lost everything. No metals, no gas, no oil, and all the money was sent over there. There is a deposit, but it is not under Russian jurisdiction. It doesn't exist, that's it. It has been cut out of Russia, this deposit, and has been moved to somewhere else. I can honestly say I knew nothing about it, about the oil. You served as the Vice Prime Minister and as a minister. Were you aware of all the trouble? We were in Saudi Arabia with a construction delegation. The Minister of Oil and Energy was with me. When we saw how they dispose of oil in Saudi Arabia, I asked him, "Who is in charge of oil sales here?" He gave me the number of 169 different people, and there were prominent comedians and singers among them. All of them run the oil business? Yes, they do. The minister was against the whole thing, but the list of those people was growing and growing. Oil would be bargained away at a time when oil prices were at a minimum. When Putin was advancing towards the presidency, I was saying that we would have to regulate all that in this country, starting with oil and gas prices and finishing with the state organization. That was an enormous job, of course. Most importantly, why did Boris Yeltsin make such decisions? He didn't have any other way out. All these things are interconnected and aren't studied in Russia. There would have been no Yeltsin as a figure without international support. From Russia, they took the nation's major advantages, oil and gas, and they paid nothing for it, nothing at all. We have not received anything yet, although we have been extracting oil for several years already. If they increase their spending, we will not be getting anything for the next 10 years. Look at the extra costs. The cost of legal services has been doubled, the cost of foreign personnel has been almost doubled, and the costs on business trips have been increased by 2.5 times. The spending included the cost of apartments for employees in the town of South Sakhalinsk, which were overvalued by 40 times. It also included plane tickets, weekend charter flights with goals in Seoul, and even a concert of a brass band in Krasakov. We paid for everything with our oil. In product-sharing agreements, when foreign companies like the British company Shell come to our shelves, we don't go 50-50 with them. They take the oil to cover their expenses. If they were to have something left over afterwards, they would give that to us. They would include everything in their expenses, things that they were and weren't allowed to do. Our country's budget increased by 3 to 4 times after the law had been abolished. It increased only because we terminated the product sharing agreement. Why do I think that Putin is not just the president? He's actually the leader of the national revolution, because he personally risked everything. Let's have a proper look at that. Did he put his life at risk? Of course he did. It's not too difficult for any foreign secret service to kill the president of another country. Gaydar Aliyevich Aliyev told us reporters the story of how they in Azerbaijan foiled an attempt on Putin's life. We didn't want to advertise ourselves, so we didn't say anything about it. The FSB knows that. Before Putin arrived here, they knew that we had already taken some measures to conduct the operation. This year saw Azerbaijan's National Security Ministry's most intensive work. This man is an Iraqi national named Kenan Ahmed Rustam, but is also known under the aliases of Abdul Rahman Bukhari, Abdul Sayyid al-Kurdi, and Kenan Dastam in the terrorist underworld. He was trained in Afghanistan and in Chechnya, so the Iraqi has Chechen links. He was trained in Afghanistan and then waged war with the Chechens. It is hard to say when exactly they started plotting Putin's assassination. He had a whole arsenal of explosive devices. There was a complicated system of bombs, which our specialists had not seen before amongst common self-made bombs.
До этого наши специалисты не видели подобной системы среди общепринятых самодельных взрывчатых устройств.
How are they planning to kill the Russian president?
Эти устройства работают через телефон, да, это.
The bombs were cell phone controlled bombs. They could be programmed via a signal from, let's say, Baku, which meant that it was possible to detonate a bomb from the cellular network to the phone. And he wanted to assassinate Putin in Baku during his visit. Yes, this is the information that we had. They captured the man who was supposed to kill Vladimir Putin. He was arrested and is serving a life sentence on the outskirts of Baku. Did any reporters manage to find out anything? Did anybody go to that camp near Baku to find out any details of how he was going to kill Putin? We know nothing about it. Allegedly from Chechnya. You must understand that all of Chechnya and Dagestan, all these terrorist activities, are an entirely foreign project. Can you find one line in our newspapers which says that Putin was facing a real danger? Moreover, when we tried to show a quotation on the assassination from that report about Aliyev on one of our TV channels, we will not mention any names here, they cut the whole piece out. There was no such attempt on Putin's life. They just cut it out before airing the film. Berezovsky was saying that it was a matter of manipulated chaos in the country. I knew nothing about that number. When Putin liquidated all those agreements, the budget of the country increased from 3 to 4 times. Well, the collection of oil taxes after the Yukos case went up 80 times. Other companies started paying out as they should have done according to Russian law in the wake of the Yukos case, and it amounted to an increase of 80 times. They wanted to pay nothing to Russia or to any of our oil entrepreneurs, like Khodorkovsky and his Yukos. Of course they didn't. As Khodorkovsky clearly wrote in his letters from the dead house, Russia is a territory for hunting. Why don't we know about